Hey guys, welcome to my corner of the internet. Today I'm going to talk about growing up Asian in America, or as some people say, Asian American. Kind of talk about my journey and how that kind of impacted my life and so forth. Okay. So I am a Denver native. I was born and raised in Denver. Well, I was born in Denver and then we grew up in Aurora. So growing up in the 90s in Aurora, I grew up like near the Aurora Mall, like where the movie theater shooting and the mall shooting was. But I swear back then when I was growing up over there, it wasn't that ghetto, as some people would call it. I really don't know like how to talk about this. So I grew up in a very traditional Christian Korean home. My parents are immigrants. They came from South Korea. I don't know, I think my mom like 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I don't know. It's been some time since my parents have been in the States. So with that being said, they kind of adapted to the American culture, but not really. Growing up, my grandparents raised us, and that's very typical in a Korean home. So I would get dropped off at, my brother and I would get dropped off at my grandmother's house in the morning, and my grandparents would make sure we got on the bus for school, and then afterwards we would, my grandparents would meet us at the bus stop and like feed us and let us play, and then one of our parents would pick us up at night, and then that was just kind of our schedule. So because my grandparents raised us, it's not like their English was like all that great anyway, but they also, my parents, like our whole family, found it very important for us to still have our roots in our Korean culture. So we didn't really learn how to speak English. I still remember my first day of kindergarten. I didn't really speak English. Like I knew kind of like the basics of like hi, how are you, and stuff like that. However, it wasn't anything like how I know English now. Like my Korean was definitely my primary language. So they stuck me in ESL. I was in ESL till I want to say 3rd grade or something. And for everybody who wants to talk smack about like, oh my god, you're so stupid, you were in ESL, no. I loved ESL. Like ESL was so much fun. Like when you guys were like doing math and shit, you know what I was doing in ESL? Playing Yahtzee and eating cupcakes and eating candy and like just playing these games to like help us learn English. So it's funny because when people look at me now, they're like, oh, like you don't have an accent, and I would have never guessed that you struggled learning English and all of these things. But that's kind of like rude to say. Like, what am I supposed to sound like? How am I supposed to speak? Like, I was born here. Kind of going back to my first day of kindergarten, I didn't know English again, and because I grew up so traditionally, like we didn't have forks in the house, and I remember we sat down and were eating, and it was like chicken nuggets and something, and there were like the other kids were like stabbing into their food, and I just remember that feeling of like being so overwhelmed with being away from my grandparents and being in a new environment, being in an environment where I didn't really know how to speak English. And then they gave me food that I really didn't. I ate a lot of American food. Like my parents said I loved McDonald's, like chicken nuggets. Still love chicken nuggets. So anyways, they gave me a fork. I didn't know how to use this fork, and I think like I just shut down and started crying. My kindergarten teacher runs over and she's like trying to talk to me, trying to calm me down, like trying to figure out why I'm crying, and she finally puts 2 and 2 together that I don't know how to use a fork, so she taught me how to use a fork. And then I know a lot of you guys are gonna be like, well, didn't you go to preschool? Like, didn't you learn English in preschool? Yes and no. Like, I knew my ABCs, I knew my colors, I knew my colors, numbers, and stuff like that. However, I did go to a private preschool where it was a Korean private preschool, so they spoke a lot of Korean to us, so I felt really comfortable there. So then when I went to a public school that wasn't speaking Korean, obviously, like, I kind of panicked. So I remember after that first day of kindergarten, I told my mom what happened, and my mom obviously felt bad, but she also knew how important it was for us to continue to learn Korean and to speak Korean at home. So my mom started buying us Disney movies whenever like new Disney movies were released. So that's how I learned how to speak English, was through Disney movies, and I still love Disney movies and still watch them. But that was kind of a struggle, and I didn't really know how to make friends, I guess, like friends that weren't Korean, because my English kind of sucked. Like, and then on top of that, I got teased for really not knowing how to speak English, but it was really weird because I knew my ABCs, I knew my colors and stuff like that. I just couldn't like really form sentences. I don't want to say I couldn't form sentences, I just like couldn't really convey like the way other kids were conveying at that time in kindergarten. But it was funny because like at home in Korean I could communicate like perfectly like that, so that was kind of a struggle. And I remember I apparently pronounced the letter Z really weird, and I got teased a lot for that. And then I remember my teacher like calling me out and kind of just like putting me on the spot, and she's like, no, you gotta say Z like this, not like that. Like, I just remember that anxiety. As a kid, I was very, very shy. I'm still pretty shy, probably not as shy as I used to be, but I was like painstakingly shy in kindergarten and probably even in first grade. But my English got a lot better after kindergarten. And then it's funny because my reading accelerated, so I've always read at a higher level, so I never really understood why I had to stay in ESL, because I was reading better than most of the other kids and stuff like that. But from what people told me, was it's because my primary language wasn't English. So even though I was proficient or advancing in my reading and writing and stuff like that, like I was still told that I had to be an ESL, and that's fine. I don't care. Again, I really enjoyed ESL. I had a good time. I formed bonds with other people who were kind of like in my shoes. There weren't really like a lot of Asian kids where I grew up. It was just kind of like me, my brother, my cousin that went to school with us, and then like a few other kids. And good Lord, I don't want to say it was that racist, but constantly we heard Chinese, Japanese, you know that thing like Chinese, Japanese, dirty look at these. It was constantly that, and being called Ming Ming or Ling Ling or something stupid like that, or stuff like that was really what I experienced, and people kind of looking at me like I was crazy, or being asked really racist things like, do you eat dogs, do you eat cats? And I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, if you guys studied American history, you know people in America during the Great Depression, they were digging up graves and eating people. because there wasn't enough food. So why is it that all of a sudden, like, you guys hear these things about like eating dogs and stuff like that, and then it's like, just because I'm Asian I eat dogs? I hear a lot, even till this day, like in 2020, are you North Korean? No, I don't know. I mean, I guess I could have escaped from North Korea, but no, I'm not North Korean. Even till this day, like, ignorance, like, what? And I hear a lot, like, what are you? Or when you hear things, go back to where you're from. Okay, Denver. They're like, no, 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 go back to where you're from. Yeah, I'm from Denver. I was born and raised in Denver. Like, where do you want me to go? No, you know where you're from, like where you came from. I was like, my mother's vagina? Like, what? Like, no, somewhere in Asia. I was like, oh, you want to know my nationality? Yeah, I'm Korean. And I've never been there. So I can't go back to somewhere that I've never been. I hear that a lot. I think one of my favorite conversations that I've ever had with somebody was, it was a long conversation at the sushi restaurant that I used to work at, and my brother got involved. No, it happened to my brother, and then I got involved, and she kept asking my brother, like, what are you? And my brother's like, a person? She goes, no, 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 like, what are you? And he's like, oh, I'm Korean. And she goes, yeah, how long have you been Korean? And we're like, what? And we're like, are you asking how old he is? And she goes, no, 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 like, how long have you been Korean? I was like, you're born Korean. But it was like this whole 20-minute conversation of trying to figure out what the hell she was trying to say to us, and like her kids were trying to figure out what she was saying to us. But anyways, yeah, that's happened. And I don't think her question came from like a malicious place. She just couldn't really convey what she was trying to say, or we couldn't figure out what she was trying to say, but our kids couldn't figure out what she was trying to say either. So, you know. Anyways, I'm kind of a product of the 90s. I grew up in the 90s and stuff like that, and I never really felt like I belonged anywhere, because I do look half. If you look at another like typical Korean girl, I don't look like that, and I've always said, I've always been told I have very American features, and I want to say, like, probably back in the 90s, like, mixed kids really weren't a thing, and they weren't as popular or present as they are now. And don't take this as like I'm hating on mixed kids. Like, my daughter's mixed. I think mixed kids are beautiful. I think it's a beautiful thing to blend cultures and stuff like that. But in the 90s, it wasn't really a thing, and I don't want people to like think bad about Koreans or anything, but it really was this like mentality of like keeping the bloodline pure, and you had to be full Korean or you're kind of shunned and all of these things. And because of the way I look, I never really knew where I belonged. Like, I didn't belong with like the other Asian kids that looked super Asian, because I looked too American, which is like, okay. But then I didn't belong like with the American kids because I looked too Asian. So I really didn't know where to fit or where I belonged. And I've heard it for so long, like, oh, I don't know where to put you or categorize you as. And I hear it from so many people, oh, you should do your makeup like this, then you'll look more Korean, or stop doing your makeup like that and you won't look as American, or like all of these things. And I was called some degrading things. Sorry, I didn't think I was gonna cry in this video. But yeah, I was called some pretty degrading things, not even by like kids, it was by adults, of being called mixed in a very degrading way, and being told like my parents are my parents because I looked so mixed. Like, how do you as an adult like live with yourself, or like look at yourself and be okay calling a child such degrading words just because I look half? Like, why does it even matter what I look like, or if I look half? You know, when I was a kid, I was such a tomboy. I had like, so when I was growing up, it was this really big thing of like having like a short bob, and then your bangs were a little bit longer, like an inch longer, and you had to bleach your bangs to like blonde. But in the 90s you didn't get like blonde like this, it was like the orange blonde. So I looked like that, and I wore baggy pants and like, you know, baggy shirts or whatever like the look was, and so my hair was always down. And because I played outside so much and I tan really easily like that, and I can get dark. I'm actually starting to get tan again. Excuse my tan lines. So I looked very tan, and I was tall, and I was very lanky. I was very skinny. I've always been really I've always been underweight. So I got a tissue, and I'm sorry I ugly cry, but here we are. So yeah, contrary to belief, yes, Asians, we do tan and we do get dark. We can get dark. I can get really dark. So anyways, the comments that I got of looking mixed and not looking Korean and just all of these like things, it was hard. It was tough, and it messes with you. And what I never understood was, as an adult, how can you look at a child and say these like degrading, mean things? And okay, I know I grew up Asian, and Asians are very blunt. Like, parents will tell you, oh, you've gained too much weight, or like, oh, you're getting a little too skinny, or oh, I don't like your makeup, or oh, don't wear that. Like, so I'm very used to that, and if it comes from my parents, it's fine because it's my parents and I know it's coming from a place of love. But as a stranger, how do you say these things to a child? Is something that I never understood. And because I would never, ever in a million years, comment on someone's child like that, or like call somebody such a degrading word. Like, I never really understood why race mattered. Like, God made us all different to make this world a beautiful place. I'm done crying, but now I'm just gonna look like I've been crying through the whole rest of the video. Alright, so let's fast forward to high school. So so because I never really knew where I fit in, I didn't really fit in like with the white kids or the Asian kids and stuff like that. So I just kind of hung out with everybody. I had a lot of black friends, I had a lot of Hispanic friends, and I had some Asian friends. And the Asian community, well, no, hold on. The Korean community here in Denver is very small and everybody kind of knows everybody. I have a very big family. The joke is I am related to like 75% of the Koreans here. So that's that. And another joke, a running joke, is if you're younger than me, I probably babysat you at some point of your life. Because I grew up so traditionally, it was always my brother, myself, my cousin, Andrew, Hetty, Eric, and Daniel. So there was the 6 of us. And on most weekends, it was me, Hetty, Eric, and Daniel. It was like the 4 of us. And then my aunts and uncles had a lot of friends, and they would leave their kids at home with me to watch over all the kids. And I was old enough to stay home alone, you guys, so like, don't be calling me out. But yeah, we're all old enough to I was old enough to stay home and watch the kids, so that's what I did on the weekends. I was very, very close to my 3 younger cousins and kind of like their parents' friends' kids, and that's just kind of how my weekends went. And then again, I still in high school didn't really feel like I fit in with the Asians. I didn't really fit in with the whites, so I was just kind of friends with everybody. And you know, my brother and I were talking about this, and like what it was when we were in high school and what it is now and stuff like that. Like, there were a lot of fights at my high school when I like think about it. There were fights all the time. We were always on lockdown. Like, I think we got bomb threats a lot too. And you guys, I grew up in white suburbia. Like, I grew up in a really nice area. The school district here is amazing. So it was just very strange that it was like, what? But nobody really messed with the Asian kids and kind of just like left us alone. But then I also saw some Asian kids always having beef with each other, and I'm just like, dude, why are we even beefing? Like, we should all be good. But nobody really messed with me. Just kind of like did my own thing. But yeah, in high school, everyone just kind of like left me alone. I had my childhood best friend that I hung out with a lot, and that was kind of it. I didn't really feel that much racism in through high school, besides like the general stereotypes of like, oh, you're Asian, you're in AP classes and honors classes. Yes, I was, okay. And then college was fine, but I did feel some racism, like obviously like when we went out after I turned 21 and we started going to the clubs. And okay, so in Denver when I was 21, clubs were a thing, and then like towards my mid-20s it turned into like bars. So there was a lot of gang violence at that time, of like Asian gangs always fighting after the bars. I'm like, if you guys are gonna fight, like why are we all getting together in one spot, everyone's getting lit, and then at the end of the night you guys are all gonna get into a fight? Like, you guys just, I never understood that. But yeah, being kind of profiled like that, of like, oh, you can't come into this club because, no, I didn't get profiled like that, let's get real here. It was more of the boys that were profiled like that, of like, oh, you're Asian, you can't come in because you got into a fight last weekend. And we're like, we weren't even here last weekend. But yeah, I still, here and there, even like with flying, I get a lot of, I always get asked, what are you? Like, can we just ask like in a nicer way? Like if you're curious to know what nationality I am, can you just say like, hey, what nationality are you? Not what are you? Because I'm gonna be that smartass and be like, last time I checked I was a person, but I could be an alien. I don't know, you know? And you know, during this whole pandemic, it's been an interesting time being Asian. It's been a very interesting time because I felt like I felt kind of peace in my life of not feeling racism and stuff like that. And then Corona came from China, and then now I get it. Like if you're, a lot of other races can't tell the difference between Asian people, so we're all just fucking Chinese apparently. So there's that. But I felt like, again, there was like a lot of peace in my life for a really long time, and then Corona happened, and now I'm experiencing the racism again. And especially when Corona first happened, I had a lot of anxiety going out with my daughter. My daughter doesn't really go out anyway, like since this has happened, but I would get anxiety leaving the house and stuff like that. One of my brother's friends got spat on at a grocery store when she had her 2 kids with her. Like, what? Anyways, that was kind of my journey of growing up Asian American in America. Anyways, let's end this video with something kind of funny. If you're Asian, you will totally understand. Asian people love free shit, like love free shit, like love that shit. Like it doesn't even matter if you need it or not. The other day my mom came home. Well, the other day my mom came and like brought this big like black garbage bag. You know those big black garbage bags that you donate clothes in? Yeah, full of like Depends. And I didn't know what they were filled with, so I came into my room and I see this big black bag and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I like look in and I was like, oh, they're pads. And then I looked at them and I was like, oh no, those aren't pads. Like those are not feminine products. They were Depends, you guys. And I was like, is my mom telling me that I need to sleep in Depends because I pee too much at night? Like, what is it? So I take it out and I'm like, hey mom, like I think these are yours. And my mom's like, no, those aren't mine. I was like, but you brought them. And she's like, yeah, those aren't mine, I brought them for you. And I was like, Mom, do you realize these aren't feminine products? These are Depends. These are for people who, these are big people diapers. And she's like, yeah, no, I know what they are. I was like, oh, okay, so why are you giving them to me? Like, I know how to use a toilet. Like, I don't have incontinence issues. And she's like, oh no, so my dad was there too, and because we're so traditional, you just shh about girl things, especially about that. And my mom's like looking at me and like, she's like, oh, you know, for that time. I was like, for that time? What, Mom, you mean my period? And she goes, shh, your dad's right there. I was like, Mom. And she's like, well, you know, I brought them from her friend because they're free. And she's like, you know, I thought you could like sleep with them on. I was like, why would I sleep with these on? She goes, so you know, you're not afraid like you're gonna leak, you don't have to sleep with the towel down, like just wear that as underwear and go to sleep. At this point, I was laughing so hard, but also like, what the fuck, so hard. I mean, I guess it's kind of smart, like you just put this Depends on and then, you know, you wear your sweats and you go to sleep and you don't have to worry about ruining your underwear or your bed or your sheets. But I was so offended that I could not tell her like, oh Mom, that's really good thinking. However, she brought him in like a large and an extra large, and I was like, Mom, you realize I know I've gained a little bit of weight since quarantine, but I won't fit into a large or an extra large. So yeah, I don't, so now we have all these Depends in my house. I don't know what to do with them. I don't need them. Yeah, anyways, thanks for watching this video, you guys. Don't forget to tap that subscribe button and that notification bell because we upload every Mondays and Fridays, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, guys.